Parliament. There was no way the president would have come out and said that he wanted that bill to be passed into law without the APC MPs in dominance in Parliament. Making that happen. It's just a way of fooling the public. And the FY bill was the only piece of legislation that I know, and I think you guys need to know this, that had to be put through consultation throughout the country. The question was why? Anyway, they took the FY bill across this country, the Ministry of Information, in collaboration with civil society, and the overwhelming decision from the people to their own elected legislators was that they needed this bill to be passed into law. And our parliament failed this nation by not acting on the say-so of the people who elected them to go to parliament. That was a complete shame, and I'm very pleased that a good number of those MPs in parliament at the time were not returned to parliament. My regret is that some others were, even though they also behaved in the same way by smothering the promulgation of the FY bill.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Umaru. I think this will bring us to the end of this particular segment of the panel discussion. We'll take a break, listeners, and please, like I always say, don't touch that mouse. We'll be back. Back to the technical director.
This is RR, which means Radio Rasta, reporting for an investigation for the children of Africa. Right now, for we want to see what happened in Africa. Want to see what happened in Africa. Want to see what happened in Africa. Report about Ethiopia. Get a bad report about Ethiopia. Children them suffering and dying for hungry. Fly keep crawling on over their faces. Want to see where the happen in Africa. Back up. Want to see where the happen in Africa. Me God, for we want to see where the happen in Africa. Oh, Jah.
There are so many issues that have been discussed. We can continue. We will always continue to talk, but that is the beauty of freedom of the press. But now we want the Freedom of the Information Act to be passed. Whosoever is in charge of lobbying Parliament, the judiciary, if you think it's in your own interest, and it should be in the interest of the judiciary, I believe, the executive, the legislative arm of government, and the fourth estate, as they call us, that is the media. We believe it's time to enact this particular bill. But during our break, Mr. Mark Jimmy from the UK said he wanted to respond to a particular assertion by the ex-president of SLAG, who is the editor of the manager, editor and publisher of the political newspaper, Mr. Umaru Fofana. Mr. Mark Jimmy, what is the bone you want to pick?
Thank you for having me on again, Saido. The point I was trying to hammer home is that, again, that brings me to civil society, or to the civil society. I believe that the people of Sierra Leone should wake up from their slumber and really take, action for themselves. The media doesn't operate in isolation. In fact, it is an established fact that the media always takes on the color of the society in which it operates. And if that's the case, then if the media is seen to be failing in its duty or in its responsibility to champion the cause of the country, then that probably has got to do with the attitude of the overwhelming majority of the people of that country. Yeah, we're talking about the Freedom of Information Act being passed into law. That's fine enough. But even if that is passed into law today, and let's say the journalists are brave enough to expose the excesses that occur in society, that will still boil down to nothing if the public do not act. So, yes, the public have got the responsibility of actually charting their own destiny. We might say anything about the politicians. I believe the politicians only do the things that they do because the public allows them to do that. Believe me, I have been around to a few places. I have seen the way the people in a society can contribute to changing the course of history or changing the status quo, wherever that might be. So we're talking about politicians reneging on their promise. But what are the public doing to make sure that these politicians that continue to break their promises are taken to task? Because it's one thing to blame the politicians, but it's quite another to also have a personal retrospection. You look at yourself and say, okay, what am I not doing rightly? So the point that I'm trying to make there is Sierra Leoneans themselves have got the duty, if not the responsibility, to actually wake up and, champion their own very cause. The politicians will continue to be corrupt as long as members of the public continue to connive with them. Because I know for one thing, the people of the country, Sierra Leone we're talking about, some of them, not all of them, believe that they have to be close to the people, the powers that be, for them to survive. Again, that brings us to the media taking on the color of the society in which it operates. Because if the people of the country say, no, listen, we've got the right to do things, we're not going to depend on earnouts, we want better schools, we want better roads, we want jobs created, we want transparency and accountability, we want corrupt politicians sent to prison because that's where they rightly belong, brought down on their knees, then those things will happen. But not until the public rise up to those challenges, I'm afraid nothing will happen in the foreseeable future. So back to the point, we might advocate the introduction of the Freedom of Information Act, but that will be a vain effort not until the public are willing to take information pertaining to the welfare of the country very seriously and actually try and make sure that what has been made, laid at their disposal is actually utilized for the common good. So there is no point chastising a media or a journalist, exposing corruption. There is no point doing that. Just as Umaru was saying earlier on, you try to expose corruption as a media practitioner belonging to, let's say, a newspaper, the next day or the following day, you will be shocked to see another newspaper contradicting exactly what you said without embarking on any tangible investigation.
Okay, Max. I think we've got that drift here. We've got it drift. Basically, trying to talk about how the media can empower the people. You understand? But I have another document. This is straight from Wikipedia, right? You can Google that. It says in 2008 there were 15 daily newspapers in addition to those published weekly, right? Let me read that again. In 2008 there were 15 daily newspapers in addition to those published weekly. Among newspaper readership, young people are likely to read newspapers weekly and older people daily. Did you get that? Young people are likely to read newspapers weekly and older people daily. The majority of the newspapers are privately run and are often critical of the government, blah, blah, blah. Right. The Sierra Leone Broadcasting Service was created by the government in 1934. Right? It goes on and on and on. It's trying to say, this document is trying to say, like 72% of people in the country listen to the radio daily. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I do agree.
Against the background of 85% of people having access to radio. Now, Mr. Boydalo Jamboria, how do you think we'll be able to empower the people? Because the media is all about empowering people. How do you think we'll be able to empower the people? make information, cascade the information down to the people? How do you think we can be able to do that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sise. I think we are coming back to where I started, empowerment of the people. And it goes to maybe what Mr. Max Jimmy himself has been trying to bring out. Like your report you have just read said, I do agree that a greater percentage of the people of Sierra Leone would rather listen to radio or look at TV than read newspapers. Okay? And with that at the focus, I think the digital media has a lot to do to empowering the people. And by empowering the people, I mean changing that social intelligence quotient that will make people begin to think, oh, this is right, this is not right. I don't have to go and fight a war to get what is right, but I have to go and ask for it, and I have to use the prescribed methods to ask for it. And also, on the other hand, those who are holding on to these things that people have a right to ask for would say, oh, we have been having the wrong outlook. I think this is good if we give it to the people. The more information goes out to the people, the better society will be. But if, as we are now, politicians, administrators hold on to information, they are not only depriving maybe journalists from giving out information to the public, they are also depriving those who would want to do research that will bring development to the country from having access to information. And the final effect of it all is that society would have little or no progress, because whatever we say, anyhow we say, the most important resource is the human resource. And the human resource can only thrive when it has access to information. But on the other hand, if we use that information without giving it properly, we'll be destroying the human infrastructure. And if we are to look at the way the media is operating in Sierra Leone now, especially to the digital media, the radio stations, etc. I was there sometime in 2011. Some of the things I heard from those radio stations was very appalling, honestly. A radio station is not a place where you go and begin to make things personal. You, Secretary General of Catholic Relief Service, we are going to name and shame you. That's not the role of the radio station. That's not the role of the radio station, honestly. The role of the radio station is to maybe use that and say, we have had information that some is happening, and how can we stop issues like this from going on in our society? Let's have a discussion on that. Let us educate the public about the effects and the bad sides of corruption and such practices. But going to name and shame somebody on the radio, you are not solving the problem. You are creating another level of animosity. And the other side about our media, Mr. Sise, which I think we need to look at, is that how effective and efficient is the media with regard to its ability to run itself. Because one reason why corruption or whatever is still thriving in our society is that the media, which should stand and block as the fourth estate, is a very divided body with several interests, several polarizations, being politicized. Newspapers may see companies doing things which are wrong. They wouldn't have the guts to publish it because they are looking for that center spread. Things like that. So if we are looking at the role of the media in impacting society. We have to look